The last bus of the night. We've all been there, right? That weird, quiet ride home. When the city's finally gone to sleep. For me, it was the number 13, lumbering down the empty street just as the rain started. I was soaked, exhausted, and just wanted my bed. When the doors hissed open, I barely glanced at the handful of passengers scattered inside. I just swiped my card, mumbled a thanks to the driver, and slumped into the first available seat. The air inside was stale, heavy, like a room that hadn't been aired out in years. The bus pulled away from the curb, and the rhythmic thump-thump of the windshield wipers was the only sound. It was too quiet. I looked around. An old woman sat near the front, her head lolled against the window, a string of pearls glinting faintly. A businessman in a wrinkled suit was a few rows back, his briefcase on his lap, staring straight ahead. A young woman with headphones was near the back, eyes closed. No one was on their phone. No one was coughing or shuffling their feet. Nothing. I felt a little prickle of unease. "Long day," I said to the driver, mostly to break the silence. He didn't answer. He didn't even move. His hands were gripping the wheel, his knuckles white. I could only see the back of his head, but something was wrong. His posture was rigid, unnatural. I looked back at the other passengers. The old woman's head was still against the glass, but now I saw it. A dark spiderweb crack in the window right where her head rested. Her skin was gray, a waxy, lifeless gray. I leaned forward, squinting. The businessman's tie was slightly askew, and a dark stain was spreading across his crisp white shirt, right over his heart. His eyes were open, but they were glassy, unfocused. They weren't seeing anything. My heart started hammering against my ribs. I looked at the young woman with the headphones. Her head was tilted back, her mouth slightly open. The cord of her headphones wasn't plugged into anything. It just dangled, swaying slightly with the movement of the bus. My breath caught in my throat. They were all dead. Every single one of them. I shot to my feet, my bag sliding off my lap and hitting the floor with a dull thud. The sound was deafening in the silence. No one reacted. I lurched towards the front of the bus. "Hey, stop the bus! You have to stop the bus!" I yelled at the driver. Nothing. I reached out and grabbed his shoulder. It was cold, rock solid, like touching a statue. Panic, raw and cold, clawed its way up my throat. I pounded on the doors. Let me out. Let me out of here. The bus didn't slow down. It just kept rolling through the deserted, rain-slicked streets. I looked out the window, desperate for a landmark, for anything familiar. But the city was changing. The buildings were blurring, the streetlights smearing into long streaks of yellow. We weren't on my route anymore. I didn't recognize any of it. Then, a fog started to roll in. Not a normal, misty fog. This was thick, white, and suffocating. It swirled around the bus, swallowing the outside world until we were moving through a milky abyss. The thumping of the wipers stopped. The hum of the engine faded. The only sound was the frantic beat of my own heart. The air grew colder, and a strange smell filled the bus, like dust and decay and forgotten memories. I stumbled back, away from the unmoving driver, and my eyes fell on the fare box. Taped to the side was a small, laminated sign, yellowed with age. I hadn't noticed it before. It read, Route 13, Eternity Line. Exact change not required. Your time is. My blood ran cold. Time. That's what this was about. I looked at the passengers again, really looked at them. The old woman, her clothes were from the 1950s. The businessman's suit was from the 80s. The young woman's clothes were from the early 2000s. They were from different eras. They were echoes. Trapped. I realized with sickening clarity what was happening. This bus wasn't just driving through the city. It was driving through time, or rather, a place where time didn't exist. It collected souls who boarded at the end of their line, destined to ride forever. And I had just bought a one-way ticket. I felt a strange heaviness settling over me. My limbs felt sluggish, my thoughts slow. It was like the fog was seeping into me, draining my energy, my will. I looked at an empty seat across the aisle. It looked so inviting, so easy to just sit down, close my eyes, and let go, become another silent passenger on the eternity line. No, I couldn't. I wouldn't. I had to get off, but how? The doors were sealed. The windows were thick, unyielding glass. I ran to the back of the bus, to the emergency exit window. The handle was stiff, rusted. I pulled with all my might, my muscles screaming in protest. The fog was getting thicker inside the bus now, swirling around my ankles. I could feel the cold seeping into my bones. With a final, desperate heave, the lever gave way with a groan of tortured metal. I shoved the window open. There was no rush of wind, no sound of traffic, just the silent, white emptiness of the fog. It was like jumping into a cloud. I didn't know what was out there. Maybe it was 100-foot drop. Maybe it was just nothing. But it was better than this moving tomb. I took one last look at the silent passengers, frozen in their final moments. I couldn't let that be my fate. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath that tasted of dust and cold, and I jumped. I fell. There was no sensation of speed, just a feeling of endless descent through the white void. Time stretched and warped. I saw flashes of my life, my first bike ride, my high school graduation, laughing with friends I hadn't seen in years. It was all being pulled away from me, like a reel of film unspooling into the nothingness. I was losing myself. Just as I felt the last of my consciousness slipping away, my feet hit something solid. I crumpled to the ground, the impact jarring every bone in my body. I lay there, gasping on wet asphalt. The air was clean, smelling of rain and damp earth. I pushed myself up. I was in an alleyway, the familiar brick walls slick with rain. In the distance, I could hear the faint sound of a siren. I was back. I scrambled to my feet and ran out of the alley onto the street. My street. My street. My apartment building was right there. Lights on in the lobby. It was real. I was real. I never looked back to see if the bus was there. I didn't want to know. I haven't taken a bus since. I walk everywhere now, or I take a cab. And sometimes, late at night when the streets are empty and the fog starts to roll in, I see it, a distant pair of headlights cutting through the mist, the hulking shape of a city bus. And Irun, because I know Route 13 is always on schedule, and it's always looking for new passengers. Forever. Thanks for listening. And don't forget to subscribe for more strange tales. Stay safe out there.